By the time an individual reaches the age of 65, a startling biological transformation has taken place. Deep within their tissues, in their organs, skin, and joints, up to 30% of their cells may have entered a state of irreversible arrest known as senescence. These are not dead cells. They are something far more insidious. Zombie cells that refuse to die, pumping out a constant stream of inflammatory chemicals that degrade and age the healthy, vibrant cells around them. This is not a theory. It is a documented biological reality. But what if this process was not an inevitability, but a choice? What if the body possessed a forgotten master switch, a primeval circuit that, when activated, could command these rogue cells to self-destruct and trigger a system-wide renewal? There is such a switch. It exists within every person watching this video. In the next 15 minutes, the precise blueprint for finding and flipping that switch will be revealed. This is not about reversing age. It is about restoring function. The human body is an impossibly complex city of trillions of cells, each performing a specialized task. Like any thriving metropolis, it generates waste. Every day, cellular components become damaged, proteins misfold, and mitochondria, the cellular power plants, begin to fail. In a young, healthy body, a sophisticated sanitation system called autophagy is constantly at work. The term itself means self-eating. It is the body's ultimate recycling program, where cells identify their own broken and dysfunctional parts, envelop them, and break them down into raw materials to be reused for repair or energy. This process is critical for vitality. It clears out the junk that leads to cellular dysfunction. It removes the damaged power plants that produce excessive oxidative stress, a key driver of aging. It is the deep cleaning that allows the city to run smoothly. But as the years pass, especially after the 5th and 6th decades of life, the signal to initiate this cleanup grows faint. The sanitation crews work less frequently. The cellular junk begins to accumulate. This slowdown is not a random error. It is a direct consequence of a modern lifestyle that has silenced the body's ancient survival mechanisms. A life of constant food availability, with 3 meals a day plus snacks, means the body is always in a state of processing and storing energy. It is never in a state of conservation and repair. The signal for renewal is never sent. This cellular decay is not inevitable. It is the result of a silent deactivation. The key to reversing it isn't found in an expensive pill or a complicated procedure, but in a specific timing protocol that costs absolutely nothing. And the first step of that protocol is simply understanding the name of the master switch itself. It is called AMP-activated protein kinase. Remember that name, AMPK. Think of AMPK as the master energy sensor within every single cell of the body. It is a guardian, constantly monitoring the ratio of high-energy molecules to low-energy molecules. When the cell has an abundance of energy, largely from a recent meal, AMPK is dormant. It is switched off. The cell is in growth and storage mode. But when the cell senses that energy levels are falling, when there is a perceived energy deficit, a cascade of events begins. That is the moment the master switch flips on. The activation of AMPK is a powerful, primal signal to the cell that times might be tough. It is a command to shift priorities away from growth and towards survival, efficiency, and repair. And one of its most critical downstream commands is the initiation of autophagy. When AMPK is active, the cellular sanitation crews are finally given their orders. They begin to scour the cell, identifying and dismantling the accumulated waste, the malfunctioning mitochondria, and the misfolded proteins that gum up the works. It is a system-wide reboot at the most fundamental level. This is not just about cleaning. It is about rejuvenation. By recycling old components, the cell gets the raw materials it needs to build new, pristine structures. It is the very essence of cellular renewal, orchestrated by a single, powerful switch. The undeniable truth is that the chronic suppression of AMPK is a hallmark of the modern aging process. The constant influx of calories, particularly from refined carbohydrates and sugars, keeps blood glucose and insulin levels perpetually elevated. Insulin is the opposing force to AMPK. When insulin is high, AMPK is forced into the off position. It cannot do its job. The junk accumulates. The system degrades. We've identified the switch. We know what keeps it off. Now, how do we intentionally flip it on? The first method is deceptively simple, and it involves changing not what you eat, but when you eat. There's a specific window that is most potent for individuals over 60, and getting this timing wrong can render the effort completely ineffective. This is not about starvation. It is about strategic abstention. This strategy is known as time-restricted eating. It is not a diet in the conventional sense. There are no forbidden foods or complex calorie counting schemes. It is simply the practice of consolidating all of your daily food intake into a specific, consistent window of time and allowing your body to remain in a fasted state for the remainder of the day and night. For an adult over the age of 55, a highly effective and safe starting point is the 16-8 protocol. This means an eating window of 8 hours, followed by a fasting window of 16 hours. For example, one might finish their last meal at 6 in the evening and not eat again until 10 the next morning. During that 16-hour fasting period, a profound metabolic shift occurs. Without a constant supply of incoming glucose from food, the body is forced to burn through its stored glycogen in the liver and muscles. As these short-term energy reserves deplete, insulin levels fall dramatically. This drop in insulin is the first part of the signal. As the fast continues past the 12-hour and 14-hour mark, the cellular energy gauge begins to dip. The cells sense the dwindling fuel supply, and this is the moment of activation. The master switch, AMPK, is flicked into the on position. The command is sent: begin the cleanup. A 2018 study published in the prestigious journal Cell Metabolism demonstrated that this form of time-restricted eating could profoundly impact gene expression related to longevity and cellular repair. It provides the body with the non-negotiable downtime it requires to perform its most essential maintenance. This is not a life of deprivation. It is a life of intention. It is creating a daily rhythm that honors the body's innate programming for self-renewal. Mastering the timing is the foundation. It removes the primary obstacle, chronically high insulin, that keeps the AMPK switch locked in the off position. But to truly supercharge this effect, to send a signal so powerful that it floods the entire system, we must introduce a specific kind of physical stress. It's not about marathon running or spending hours in the gym. It is a unique type of movement that sends a powerful, direct AMPK activating signal to your muscles and your mitochondria. And it takes less than 20 minutes, 3 times a week. This second pillar of the blueprint involves strategic surges of intensity. Often called high-intensity interval training, or HIIT, it can be adapted safely for any fitness level. The principle is not about achieving the speed of an Olympic athlete. It is about working near your own personal maximum effort for very short, manageable bursts of time, followed by a longer period of gentle recovery. This creates a rapid and significant energy demand within the muscle cells. During a 30-second surge of effort, be it fast walking, cycling on a stationary bike, or even climbing a set of stairs, the muscle cells burn through their readily available energy at an astonishing rate. This creates an acute, localized energy crisis. It is a much more potent trigger for AMPK than an hour of slow, steady-state cardio. The cell screams for energy, and AMPK responds, flipping on not only to unlock more fuel, but to initiate the deep repair and rebuilding processes that make the muscle stronger and more efficient for the next time. Consider a simple, accessible protocol. After a 5-minute warm-up, one performs 30 seconds of challenging effort. This should be an 8 or 9 on a personal scale of 1 to 10. It is followed by 90 seconds of very slow, gentle recovery. That 2-minute cycle is repeated just 6 to 8 times. The total working time is only a few minutes, but the metabolic and signaling impact resonates for hours afterward. This strategic stress tells the body that it must become more robust and efficient. It signals for the creation of new, more powerful mitochondria, the cellular power plants. It is the physical manifestation of the order to repair and rebuild. The combination of a 16-hour daily fast with 3 weekly sessions of this type of intensity cycling creates a powerful 1-2 punch for AMPK activation. The fasting lowers the systemic barrier, and the exercise provides the potent, targeted trigger. You now have the 2 primary keys, the timing and the trigger. But there is a third, often overlooked, element. It involves specific compounds found in everyday foods that act as AMPK activators. Essentially, they help keep the master switch in the on position for longer, amplifying the benefits of everything you've just learned. The most potent of these is found not in an exotic superfood, but in a common beverage that millions drink every day, yet they prepare it in a way that completely negates its power. That beverage is green tea. But before you dismiss this as old news, you must understand the critical biochemical detail. The magic lies in a specific polyphenol called epigallocatechin gallate, or EGCG. It's a potent AMPK activator. When you drink properly prepared green tea during your fasting window, these EGCG molecules enter your system and act like a key, fitting perfectly into a secondary slot on the AMPK enzyme, helping to hold the switch in the anon position. It amplifies the signal sent by fasting. But here is the multi-billion-dollar mistake millions make every single morning. They add milk, or cream, or even a non-dairy creamer containing protein. The primary protein in dairy, casein, binds directly to the EGCG in the tea, rendering it biologically inert. Your body can no longer absorb it. You might as well be drinking hot water. The sugar, of course, creates an insulin spike, which is the primary, off, signal for AMPK. You've taken a powerful longevity tool and turned it into its own antidote. But what if I told you that even with perfect timing, precision exercise, and pure, unadulterated green tea, that there might be something else, a hidden saboteur? What if there's a force working silently against you, actively locking the AMPK switch in the off position, no matter what you do? This isn't about a mistake you're making, like adding milk to your tea. This is about a deliberate action you may be taking, with the best of intentions, under the guidance of a trusted professional, that could be undermining this entire process. Are you ready for the uncomfortable truth? This hidden brake on your cellular renewal system may be sitting in your medicine cabinet right now. We need to talk about one of the most widely prescribed classes of drugs on the planet for people over the age of 50. Statins. Now let me be unequivocally clear. This is not medical advice, and you should never, ever change a prescribed medication without consulting your doctor. Statins have been instrumental in managing cardiovascular risk for millions by lowering cholesterol. They are a pillar of modern medicine, but a growing body of compelling research, including studies from prestigious institutions, is uncovering a deeply concerning side effect. They appear to be potent inhibitors of the AMPK pathway, the very mechanism that makes statins effective at lowering cholesterol. Inhibiting an enzyme called HMG-CoA reductase is the source of the problem. This enzyme is part of a long chain of command within the cell. By shutting it down, you inadvertently disrupt the communication network that allows the cell to sense its own energy levels. It's like cutting the wire to the fire alarm. The fire, the energy crisis that should trigger the cleanup crew, might be raging, but the alarm bell, AMPK, never rings. So here we stand, at a profound and deeply personal crossroads. You could be fasting for 16 hours a day. You could be performing high-intensity interval training perfectly. But if you are taking one of these medications, you may be fighting with one hand tied behind your back. You are pressing the accelerator and the brake at the very same time. What does this mean for you? It means you are faced with a complex biological equation. A medication prescribed to protect your heart, your macrosystem, may be simultaneously hampering the rejuvenation of your cells, your microsystem. This isn't a reason to panic. It is a reason to become empowered. It's a reason to have a new, more informed conversation with your doctor about the full spectrum of effects. But more importantly, it's a reason to understand that you may need to work even smarter. You may need to provide your body with overwhelming support to counteract this blockade. It means we must introduce a fourth pillar to this blueprint. A pillar designed to create a molecular bypass. A clever workaround that gives your cells an alternate route to renewal, even when the main highway is closed. And this bypass begins not with a drug or a supplement, but with understanding the one critical nutrient that the modern diet has systematically and tragically almost completely eliminated. This nutrient isn't a vitamin or a mineral. It's a polyamine, a powerful signaling molecule named for its initial discovery in a place that might make you uncomfortable. It's called spermidine, and while that name might raise an eyebrow, its function is one of the most profound in all of biology. Spermidine is a direct, potent trigger for autophagy, the cellular self-cleaning process. It doesn't ask AMPK for permission. It is the permission. This is your molecular bypass. So why is it gone? Why has our food supply been systematically stripped of one of nature's most powerful renewal signals? The answer is not just about modern farming. It's about our obsession with sterility, shelf life, and a deep-seated cultural fear of the very biological processes that keep us alive. The processes of fermentation, of aging, of controlled, beneficial decay. Think about the richest food sources of spermidine on Earth. They are not clean, sterile, or simple. These are foods with character, with history, with life. They are the antithesis of the modern supermarket aisle, a temple of hermetically sealed, pasteurized, homogenized, long shelf-life products designed to be inert. Our war against microbes, a war waged with pasteurization and processing, wasn't just a war on pathogens, it was collateral damage. We sterilized our food. And in doing so, we sterilized it of its youth-preserving signals. We took the wheat grain and, to make it last longer on the shelf and create a fluffier texture, we stripped out the germ and the bran, the very parts containing the spermidine. We took our cheeses and, instead of aging them, which allows for the natural development of polyamines, we created processed cheese food that can sit on a shelf for a year. We've systematically de-spermidined our diet in the name of convenience. But what if I told you that the food on your plate is only half of the story? What if the most catastrophic loss of spermidine isn't from what we've removed from our food, but from what we've removed from ourselves? Because here's the great secret. The largest and most consistent source of spermidine for your body is not supposed to be your diet. It's supposed to be your gut. A healthy human gut microbiome is a veritable spermidine factory. Trillions of beneficial bacteria work symbiotically, 24/7, to produce this life-extending compound for their host for you. It's an ancient pact. You give them a home and fiber to eat, and they give you the keys to cellular renewal. But we broke the pact. Think about it. The average person in the Western world has taken dozens of courses of broad-spectrum antibiotics by the time they are 50. These are biological nukes. They don't just kill the bad guys. They carpet bomb the entire ecosystem. We've then starved the survivors by feeding them a diet of ultra-processed, low-fiber foods and poisoned them with artificial ingredients they never evolved to handle. The result? The spermidine factories have gone silent. The workers have been laid off. The assembly lines are rusting. Your internal source of this critical autophagy trigger has been systematically, and perhaps permanently, decommissioned. So let's recap this biological dilemma, this perfect storm of aging. Pillar 1. You try to flip the AMPK switch with fasting and exercise. But for millions, a prescribed statin medication may be holding that switch down, acting as a powerful brake. Pillar 2. You try to use the molecular bypass, spermidine, to trigger autophagy directly. But the modern food supply has been systematically stripped of it in our quest for sterile, shelf-stable convenience. Pillar 3. You rely on your own internal production from your gut microbiome, but that internal factory has been ravaged by the modern lifestyle, by antibiotics, and by poor nutrition. It feels like a checkmate, doesn't it? A biological trap. Every path to cellular renewal seems to be blocked. Press the accelerator, the brake is on. Try the side road, the bridge is out. Rely on your own engine, the fuel line is cut. This is why so many people feel stuck. They are doing everything right. They are eating less, exercising more. But they feel older, more tired, more inflamed. They are fighting a war on 3 fronts. And they're losing, because they don't even know who the enemy is. But what if there was a way to break the stalemate? What if we could resupply the bypass route directly? What if we could deliver the spermidine payload right to our cells, essentially airdropping the supplies they need to start the cleanup, regardless of the blockades? This leads us to the controversial and deeply fascinating world of supplementation. But this isn't about just grabbing a bottle off the shelf, because a new problem arises, a problem of dose, of purity, and of a very strange biological paradox. It turns out that with spermidine, more is not better. In fact, the wrong dose might be just as bad as no dose at all. It's what scientists call a hormetic effect, a little bit of a stressor. In this case, a signaling molecule triggers a powerful, beneficial, adaptive response in the cell. But too much of it can overwhelm the system and cause it to shut down. It's like trying to talk to someone. If you whisper, they can't hear you. But if you scream in their face, they don't listen. They just recoil. You need to speak in a firm, clear voice. And for your cells, that voice is a very specific, narrow dosage window. Most supplements on the market, rushing to capitalize on the trend, get this wrong. They either underdose, providing nothing more than an expensive placebo, or they megadose, believing that more is always better, potentially shutting down the very pathway they're trying to activate. So how do we find the precise, scientifically validated dose? We have to look at the one population on Earth with the highest dietary intake of spermidine and the longest health spans. We have to go to a very specific part of Japan, to the Ogimi village in Okinawa, a place with one of the highest concentrations of centenarians on the planet. Here, longevity isn't an accident. It's a byproduct of a culture and a diet preserved for centuries. For generations, the traditional Okinawan diet has been naturally rich in spermidine, not by design, but by tradition. They consume vast quantities of fermented soybeans, like natto, specific types of mushrooms, and whole grains. foods that have been systematically processed out of the Western diet. They never cut the fuel line. They never decommissioned the factories. And when researchers analyzed their daily dietary intake, they found the magic number, the precise, hormetic dose that speaks to our cells in that firm, clear voice. It wasn't a megadose. It was, on average, between 5 and 10 milligrams of spermidine per day. This isn't a flood. It's a signal, a biological memo sent to every cell, saying, the environment is good. Resources are sufficient. It is safe to begin cellular cleaning. This is the key. It's not about overwhelming the system. It's about restoring a missing signal. It's about reestablishing the conversation that the modern world has silenced. A correctly dosed spermidine supplement isn't a replacement for a healthy lifestyle. It is the catalyst that allows your healthy lifestyle to finally work. Think back to our biological checkmate, to the person standing at that blocked, three-way fork in the road. Airdropping the right dose of spermidine isn't just about bypassing one problem. It's about creating a cascading solution. When you directly resupply this critical molecule, you kickstart autophagy. Your cells begin to clean themselves, becoming more efficient and less inflamed. A less inflamed cell is more sensitive to signals. Suddenly, the AMPK switch from your exercise isn't being held down so hard. The statin's brake is still there, but now your foot on the accelerator has more power. The first blockade begins to weaken, and as your body becomes a healthier, less inflammatory environment, you create more fertile ground for your good gut bacteria to regrow. By feeding them the high-fiber foods they need, you're not just feeding a barren wasteland anymore. You're reseeding a garden where the spermidine factories can, slowly but surely, come back online. You are restarting your own engine. The goal was never to find a single magic bullet. The goal was to find the first domino. It's not about fighting your body. It's about working with it. It's about understanding this beautiful, complex system and giving it the tools and signals it needs to do what it was designed to do. Heal itself, to renew, to thrive. This is just one conversation, one key to one of the most important locks for your health and longevity. But there are so many others. The secrets of mitochondrial health, the power of hormetic stress, the new science of sleep. The human body is an entire universe of secrets waiting to be unlocked. To continue this journey of discovery, to understand the science, and to reclaim control of your own biology, subscribe